Okay, so this lesson is really all about kind of taking the information that you've gathered and put in this table format and turning that into a graph in the coordinate plane. So the big idea is graphing equations in two variables. So really quickly notice that this is just an equation that has two variables. So x depends on y and vice versa. Y kind of depends on x because what we put in affects what we get out. So we could start by putting in a value, and I like to choose my zeros. So if I put 0 in for x, I think you guys know that we would do 3 times 0, and so then we'd have to add y, but we know that has to equal -8. So in this case, the only value that, since 3 times 0 is 0, y would have to equal -8. And I could do that same thing for, I could continue with a 1 for x. So if I put in 1, 3 times 1 is 3. So I'm asking myself, what do I have to add to 3 to get to -8? Well, I'd have to add -11. Because if I'm adding 3, I know that y must be more negative because I'm making the value of the output increase. So I need to have -11. And you can check that by saying, okay, well, 3 plus -11, that does equal -8. So I think you can check just by plugging it in if you really want to see. So I can continue this. I can go 2, and I would know that, 3 times 2 is 6. So if I have to think about y, I'm like, well, what would y have to be? Well, if I have 6, this would have to be, what would that have to be, 13? No, 14. So we'd have to have -14 for this equation to equal -8. Okay, and I think, and you guys might not notice, but I'm starting to notice a pattern, and I notice this pattern as I look at my y values. It looks to me like they're going down by 3 for every 1 that I'm changing my x values. So that's a useful thing to notice, because I don't necessarily have to continue doing the calculations. I can just kind of input more values, knowing that, well, it seems very likely this pattern will continue. I can always check. So if that's true, I could put in 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So then I know that this would have to be 17, -17, for y to equal. So I'd have -17. And then I think, I could put in -20 if this became 4, and so on. I could also kind of take this the other direction. So since we've only used positive values for x, I could put in -1 for x, and knowing that this would probably become -5. I could also put in -2, and this would be -2. And I can check that, because if I said, well, 3 times -2 is -6, and if we have -6 and we add -2 for y to it, -6, and then adding 2 more negatives does make -8. So in the lesson it tells you to find at least 10. I think 5 to 6 is probably plenty, so don't stress out. Like 10 seems kind of like overkill a little bit. But part of the goal of this lesson is to really graph. So if I go to this next slide, I have a coordinate plane set up, and I just want to try to remember some of these values if I can. Now that I'm realizing I set myself up. So what I know is if I flash over, when it was 0, so when my x value was 0, my y value was -8. So I'm just going to put a point there. When my x value became 1, we said this went up by 3, so it was -5, so I had a point there. When my x value was 2, we were at -2, so we had a point there. When we were at 3, oh, but we were going the other way, weren't we? Sorry, we were more negative. I just messed that up for you guys. I'm not looking at my values. So when we went 1, it was actually -11. So it went down here, sorry. So we were going 1, 2, 3 smaller. Okay, and I kind of set this up, but we noticed that it was going down. When I tried the value -1, that's when it went to 5. So it went over here. When I tried -2, we said we got out -2. And so we had a point there. What I think you guys hopefully are noticing is that really what we have is what looks to be a linear relationship, and that's part of the goal. When I say linear, I just mean that the data forms a straight line. So you should see that line that we formed by plotting the points that we found in our table that satisfied the two variable equation on this coordinate plane. Okay, so I know that some of you guys are probably feeling like a little overwhelmed with the quantity of work that's been put in front of you this week, but don't stress out. If you haven't been finishing, my goal is to keep you guys busy and kind of hopefully have you exposed to new content. But don't stress if you're like, oh, I didn't get this or that, okay? Because I promise we'll get you caught up when I'm back next Monday, and you guys have the day off tomorrow. So really enjoy that, and yeah, so don't stress out. I know it's the beginning of the new quarter, and I promise we'll get things kind of taken care of upon my return. Okay, well, good luck. Hope it goes well.